Hey there, welcome to this channel. Now, Labor Day might feel like just another long weekend, the unofficial end of summer, or a chance to fire up the grill. But behind this holiday is a powerful story of struggle, sacrifice, and victory for American workers. So what's the real meaning of Labor Day? Let's dig into history to find out. Back in the late 1800s, during the Industrial Revolution, workers were expected to labor 12 hours a day, 6 or even 7 days a week. To put that in perspective, back then, if you worked from 8 to 5, you would have had to work until 8 p.m. 6 days a week just to put in 40 hours. Factories were overcrowded, unsafe, and exhausting. Machines had sharp, exposed moving parts, and there were few safety regulations. Workers could easily get injured and sometimes even die on the job. Working conditions were especially bad for African Americans and other minorities who often faced discrimination and were paid less than white workers. Child labor was also common. Children, as young as age 5, worked in factories doing dangerous jobs, and they, too, often suffered serious injuries. So it's no surprise that workers began to organize, forming labor unions that demanded shorter hours, safer conditions, fair pay, and a voice in their workplaces. But of course, this didn't come easily. Workers were up against some of the most powerful people in the country. Factory owners who had the money and influence to hire private security forces to protect their property. And when workers walked off the job, as they did in the 1886 Pullman strike, violence was often the result. In fact, one of the most violent clashes between workers and security forces took place in Chicago in 1886. It was called the Haymarket Affair. After police tried to break up a peaceful protest, a bomb was thrown, killing 7 police officers. 8 men were later convicted for the crime, although some historians argue that they were actually innocent. In the aftermath, public support for the labor movement began to decline. But the fight for workers' rights didn't end there. Nearly a decade later, the Pullman strike broke out. This was a nationwide railroad strike that began in Illinois. In 1894, after the Pullman Company laid off workers and cut wages, at the time, the company town of Pullman, Illinois, where many railroad workers lived, was a miniature city complete with housing, shops, and even a church. And almost everything in Pullman was owned by the Pullman Company. So when the Pullman Company raised rents and lowered workers' wages, workers all across the country began to walk out. At one point, more than 300,000 railroad workers were on strike. President Grover Cleveland sent federal troops to break the strike. Clashes broke out between workers and troops, leaving more than a dozen workers dead. In the aftermath, wanting to restore order and prevent future violence, President Cleveland signed the law establishing Labor Day as a national holiday to be celebrated on the first Monday in September. And while the Pullman strike ended in failure, the labor movement continued to grow. By the early 1900s, the American Federation of Labor, or AFL, had become the largest labor union in the country. Over the years, the AFL and other labor unions continued to push for better working conditions, higher wages, and more rights for workers. And slowly, things began to change. Today, we may not think twice about things like the 8-hour workday, weekends off, overtime pay, minimum wage laws, and child labor laws. But these rights didn't exist 100 years ago. They are the result of the labor movement and the struggle for workers' rights. So the next time you enjoy a hot dog at a Labor Day parade or watch fireworks, remember, this holiday isn't just about rest, but about respect. Respect for the workers who fought for the rights we often take for granted. And now it's time for you to keep this important history alive. Share this video with friends and family, and let them know how their hard work helps build our nation, as Labor Day is more than a 3-day weekend. It's a reminder that the American dream was built, and is still being built, by the hands of workers. Happy Labor Day. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out more content.